He endured years of cruelty. His silent prayer changed everything. There is a deep, agonizing feeling in giving absolutely everything you have, only to find that your sacrifice means nothing to those you serve. This was the silent, arduous life of Bruno, a sturdy donkey who labored for years, bearing not just heavy loads, but the constant weight of cruelty and contempt from his owner. Yet when every trace of hope seemed to vanish, a higher power heard his broken clamor, setting his destiny on a path that would change his life forever. If you want to witness this miracle of faith rewarded, stay tuned. It was in a wide valley, cradled by ancient, rolling mountains, that two donkeys were born almost simultaneously, each on a separate farm. One was named Poncho and the other Bruno. Both were inherently strong, noble, and quickly learned the hard discipline of work on their respective masters' lands. Poncho enjoyed the rare fortune of belonging to Don Juan, a man of profound humility, diligence, and fairness, who saw in his donkey not just a beast of burden, but a vital partner in life. Don Juan ensured Poncho was fed well, given ample rest, and always treated with genuine affection. For Don Juan, Poncho was inseparable from his family and his livelihood. Bruno, sadly, did not share this benevolent fate. His owner was Don Osvaldo, a harsh, selfish man who viewed animals solely as disposable instruments, tools designed only for exhaustion. Bruno was never short of work, yet he was starved of kindness, care, and rightful repose. While Poncho received steady words of encouragement, Bruno knew only the sting of the whip, the sound of screams, and the crushing pressure of indifference. As the years passed, the two donkeys forged an unlikely friendship across the simple strand of wire fencing that divided the two properties. In the evenings, when the sprawling field grew silent and the first fireflies began to illuminate the darkness, their soft voices would mingle, the quiet conversation of lifelong friends. "Good evening, Poncho," Bruno would sigh, the weariness evident in every syllable. "I must congratulate you, brother. Each day you appear stronger and happier." "It's clear your owner cares for you deeply," Poncho would answer with characteristic humility. "Thank you, Bruno. Don Juan treats me with kindness and I perform my work gladly. It is not a perfect existence, but I am filled with gratitude." "And you, how did your long day end?" Bruno would hang his head low, his voice barely a choked whisper. "Ah, Poncho, my life is nothing like yours. Don Osvaldo compels me to work from the first flicker of dawn until the very moment the sun disappears, and I never receive a single word of comfort, nor even a just moment of rest. Sometimes, he gives me so little sustenance that I barely possess the strength to lift my legs. I push myself, I carry every load they command, yet it seems to be perpetually insufficient." Poncho regarded him with deep, aching sympathy, and replied, "Brother, your immense effort is not in vain. Perhaps your cruel master does not see it, but surely God sees every step you take. Do not lose your sacred faith, Bruno. The heavens always listen to those who labor with purity of heart." Bruno, struggling to hold back his tears, confessed, "Every single night I pray, Poncho. I ask God to grant me an owner just like yours. Someone who can see beyond my perpetually tired back. Someone who comprehends that I am not merely a donkey for hire. That I also possess a soul, that I too can feel. I don't know how much longer I can endure this, but I continue to believe that one day, my silent pleas will finally be heard." Poncho moved his muzzle close to the fence, as if attempting to offer a physical embrace to his friend, and declared firmly, "Bruno, you must not surrender. The work we perform is brutal, yes, but the integrity and heart with which we carry it is worth more than all the gold in the universe. Remember this truth. It is not the actual weight of the burden that destroys us, but the devastating absence of hope. You continue to pray, continue to believe, and your just reward will inevitably arrive." Bruno managed a tired smile, a faint spark of faith flickering in his deep eyes, and responded, "Thank you, Poncho. You are far more than just a friend. You are the steadfast voice that reminds me that hope still exists within this cruel world." That night, both donkeys closed their eyes, gazing upon the vast, star-strewn sky, one filled with profound thankfulness, the other buoyed by quiet hope. In their soft whispers, it seemed as though their prayers ascended to the Almighty together. That next dawn, the boisterous chorus of the roosters announced the start of yet another exceptionally taxing day. As was customary, Bruno was the first out. Laden with heavy milk jugs he could barely keep steady upon his aching spine. Walking beside him was Don Osvaldo, irritable and impatient, his eyes fixed narrowly on the path ahead. A little later, Poncho emerged, tall and composed, his own jugs carefully balanced, guided by Don Juan, who always walked at a slow, deliberate pace, careful not to overexert him. The road leading to the nearby village contained a notorious difficulty, an old, treacherous marsh where the ground became dangerously soft and unstable. This morning, fate delivered a cruel blow to Bruno. His legs, already utterly spent and lacking strength, sank immediately into the thick mud, and the crushing weight of the jugs dragged him swiftly downwards. The miserable donkey fell to his knees, thrashing desperately in the mire as the foul, muddy water rapidly covered him. Bruno, utterly panicked, brayed a sound of pure agony. "Help, I cannot possibly rise." But Don Osvaldo, instead of reaching out a hand, glared down with sheer contempt, brandishing his whip. He roared with merciless severity. "Stupid donkey, always the same pathetic struggle with you. You are completely useless, you worthless animal. If you simply die right there, I shall merely purchase another one and be done with it." Bruno dropped his head, his tears mixing with the slick mud. Every vicious word from his master weighed heavier on his soul than the entire load of jugs. Just at that horrific moment, Poncho and Don Juan appeared around the bend and witnessed the terrible sight. Don Juan, his brow furrowed with rage, hurried forward and raised his voice. "Osvaldo, enough of this. You have absolutely no right to treat your animal this way. That donkey has labored for you his entire life, and the very least he deserves is simple respect and human compassion." Osvaldo snorted, his face contorted with arrogance, and replied with disdain, "Juan, do not interfere in matters that do not concern you. This miserable donkey is my property, and I shall manage him precisely as I desire. Continue on your way and cease your ridiculous sermons." Meanwhile, Poncho, who had been intently watching his friend sinking deeper into the swamp, approached slowly with the tenderness of a true brother. He stopped right beside the muddy bank, stretched his neck out, and spoke to Bruno in a comforting, gentle tone. "Come on, Bruno, do not give up now. You are far mightier than you realize. Take a deep, steady breath, my friend. I am here right beside you." Bruno, plastered in sludge, looked up with profound sorrow. "Poncho, I truly cannot continue. I am exhausted. My body is throbbing and my spirit is completely shattered." Poncho gently brushed his muzzle against Bruno's face, ignoring the dirt that smeared him, and murmured, "No, Bruno, you are worth infinitely more than these invisible chains. If your owner refuses to see your worth, I see it, and God also sees it. Rise up, brother, you are not alone in this fight." It was then that Don Juan stepped into the marsh without hesitation, rolling up his trousers and boots. With great strength and patience, he began to lift the sunken jugs while Poncho continued to encourage his friend. Bruno, inspired by those precious words of sincere support and the helping hand of a kind man, gathered strength from a place he thought was long empty. With one final, wrenching exertion, supported by the strong shoulder of Don Juan and the unwavering presence of Poncho at his side, Bruno managed to struggle free, trembling and caked in mud. Don Juan stroked his forehead with genuine tenderness. "That's it, you achieved it. You are not alone, Bruno." Osvaldo, infuriated and deeply ashamed, merely clicked his tongue and stomped away, leading the mudded Bruno while muttering curses, totally incapable of comprehending the depth of kindness he had just witnessed. That day, though Bruno was soaking wet and filthy, he continued his labor toward the town. The two donkeys walked on, one filled with gratitude, the other driven by renewed hope. And as they carried their milk, their eyes signaled to each other that the actual weight of their labor became significantly lighter when it was shared with friendship, respect, and unconditional love. That evening, after the difficult journey to the village and the humiliating incident in the marsh, Bruno returned to his small corral soaked, his body bruised, and his heart deeply wounded. He barely managed to finish the small amount of dry hay Don Osvaldo had begrudgingly left him. He walked toward the wire fence where he habitually conversed with Poncho. He approached with hope, but this time, the spot was deserted. The silence of the night felt heavier than ever before. Bruno gazed up at the stellar expanse, sighed deeply, and his voice trembling, he began to speak to his creator. "Lord, tonight I do not come to complain," he said softly. "First, I want to offer my gratitude because even though my burden is immense, I am still alive. I still possess the strength to walk, though my back aches, and I still draw breath, even when my will falters. Thank you for the warmth of the sun, for the water that quenches my thirst, and at least for this humble corral where I can rest." He paused, and his eyes filled with tears that glistened beneath the moonlight. "But Father, I am also desperately tired. I have toiled my entire existence from dawn until the deepest night. I haul wood, I deliver milk, I break the earth with the plow, and although I give absolutely everything, I never once hear a word of appreciation. Never a thank you escapes the lips of my owner. Only screams, insults, and utter disdain. You know me, Lord. You know that my only wish is to serve with dignity. For how much longer must I endure this unrewarded life? Have mercy upon me, my God. Do not leave me forgotten." Bruno closed his weary eyes, and in that very moment he felt a faint nudge against his flank. It was Poncho, who had arrived late because Don Juan had detained him slightly longer that evening. "Friend," Poncho said with profound sweetness, "I heard you from the other side. Every single word you uttered ascended to the heavens like precious incense. Believe me, Bruno, God does not shut his ears to a sincere heart." Bruno looked at him with watery eyes and replied, "Poncho, sometimes I feel as though my voice is lost entirely in the wind, that God is far too busy with greater, more significant problems than my simple suffering." Poncho shook his head and firmly responded, "No, Bruno, never speak that way. God sees every tear that falls, hears every whispered sigh, and measures every drop of sweat that pours from your brow. You think he ignores you simply because you have yet to see the response, but the truth is that he is meticulously preparing something for you. And I tell you this, no genuine prayer ever goes unanswered. The vast silence of the field enveloped them. They could hear the distant chirping of crickets, the mournful hoot of an owl, and the night breeze gently stirring the tall grass. It was as if all of creation held its breath to accompany that sacred moment. Bruno spoke again, his voice trembling with exhaustion. "I only desire a small fraction of what you possess, Poncho. An owner who looks at me with tenderness, who affords me just treatment. I do not ask for luxuries or great wealth. I only long to work and to feel that my dedicated effort holds true value." Poncho moved closer until his forehead touched Bruno's, like two brothers drawing deep strength from one another. "Brother, your compensation will arrive. Never abandon your faith. The mud of today does not define your destiny. I am here, and as long as God permits it, you will always have one friend who reminds you that you are not alone." Bruno closed his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he smiled through his tears. "Thank you, Poncho. You are the undeniable proof that simple goodness still exists in this world." And under that starlit sky, the two donkeys fell into a deep silence, united by hope. One was thankful for his current blessings. The other continued to trust that one day, his long-awaited prayers would be answered. The sun had barely begun its ascent when Don Osvaldo already had Bruno saddled to the heavy plow. The poor donkey, already depleted from the previous days and severely underfed, moved with clumsy, leaden steps. His body was painfully thin, his ribs prominent, and his gaze reflected an infinite, crushing fatigue. Bruno attempted to pull the heavy blade, but the effort was far too great. In the middle of the field, where the earth was still damp with morning dew, his legs finally gave out and he collapsed onto the ground. The plow stopped halfway, the earth's furrows lying incomplete. "Get up, you worthless animal!" Don Osvaldo shrieked, incandescent with rage. Without any shred of compassion, he began to lash him with the whip, each blow raising dust and tearing a groan of agony from the desperate animal. "You are good for absolutely nothing, you stupid donkey. Not for carrying and certainly not for plowing. Cursed be the day I bought you." Bruno gasped, tears welling in his tired eyes, and thought silently, "Lord, how much more must I bear? I possess no more strength left to give." Just at that critical instant, Don Juan and Poncho were passing nearby, carrying firewood. Seeing the brutal scene, Don Juan stopped short, his face a mask of indignation. "Osvaldo," he exclaimed in a strong, commanding voice. "Stop immediately. Can you not see that animal cannot possibly bear any more? Have you lost every shred of your humanity?" Don Osvaldo turned around haughtily, still clutching the whip, and snarled, "Juan, do not involve yourself. This donkey belongs to me, and I shall do with him exactly as I please." Don Juan met his gaze with severity and took a deliberate step forward. "You are profoundly mistaken, Osvaldo. They are not yours. Neither your animals, nor your lands, nor even your own fleeting life. Everything you possess is merely borrowed, and one day you will be forced to give a full account to the Creator. Be careful, for they have silent protectors. You not know that the very heavens are roused to indignation by such pervasive injustice." Osvaldo let out a derisive laugh. "Angels, karma. Such words belong to naive peasants. The world belongs to the strong, Juan. And the weak, like this pathetic donkey, are useful only for labor until they expire." Don Juan, though calm, possessed an undeniable authority in his voice, and sentenced, "Hear my words well. Life always repays precisely what one sows, and you have sown cruelty, contempt, and black ingratitude. Be extremely wary, Osvaldo. Karma gives no warning, but it always arrives." Meanwhile, Poncho, observing the entire dreadful spectacle from the edge of the fence, lowered his head and murmured to himself, "Poor Bruno, such profound pain in a heart so noble. Lord, grant him justice. I beg you not to abandon him now." Bruno, still lying broken on the ground, managed to look toward his friend and Don Juan. A tiny flicker of hope sparked in his defeated eyes, even though his body was utterly exhausted. That night, following the day of suffering, Bruno once more looked toward the dark sky. He lacked the physical strength to pray aloud, but his heart silently wailed, "God, I can endure no more. If you truly hear me, come to my aid now." The heavens seemed to hold their peace, but the unseen world had begun to move. That very night, the divine decided to answer Bruno, and just as the test had been permitted, a definitive boundary was now being set. The wind began to blow forcefully through the trees, a low murmur that seemed to announce a coming judgment. The core of Don Osvaldo's soul began to be deeply unsettled. What he had flagrantly ignored for countless years would now be paid for. Because when injustice reaches its absolute limit, the heavens respond, and divine reprimand was poised to descend upon Don Osvaldo. That night after the dreadful day, the sky seemed darker than usual, but high above, God heard the prayers of Bruno, his silent cries, his tears that fell upon the parched earth. It was then that the Almighty chose to act. One day, Don Osvaldo's prosperous farm began to change. At first, it was almost undetectable. The vibrant grass lost its rich green luster. The pastures turned brittle, yellow, and dry, and the reliable rains that once nourished his fields seemed to have utterly forgotten his property. Osvaldo noticed, but dismissed it as merely a run of bad luck. He did not realize that this was only the prelude to something far more devastating. No direct disease struck the animals, nor did tragedy befall the innocent. Slowly, methodically, the abundance Osvaldo had always relied upon began to vanish. The crops wilted before they could ripen fully. The seeds appeared to die in the soil without ever producing fruit, and the water in the usually robust streams became weak, almost non-existent. The farm that had previously given him such prosperity began to exhibit clear signs of abandonment, as if the very land refused to sustain his cruelty any longer. One by one, his animals, weak from lack of proper sustenance, ceased to be useful. They could no longer carry, nor plow, nor provide milk. Osvaldo, becoming desperately poor, was compelled to sell them off merely to gain a few meager coins with which to survive. Every sale was a painful, undeniable reminder of his deepening ruin. Little by little, he was left completely alone, the entire farm emptied of life, and the single animal that remained steadfastly at his side was Bruno, the very one he had always despised, the one he had called useless countless times. But Bruno, despite the years of brutal treatment, remained alive, as if held up by an invisible hand amidst the poverty. Osvaldo, completely defeated, finally grasped that he had to separate himself from the donkey too. His pride utterly shattered, he walked with Bruno on a lead rope all the way to Don Juan's farm. "Juan," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion, "you know what is happening to me. The land yields nothing anymore. I have no animals, I have nothing left, only this donkey. I will sell him to you, even if it is only for a handful of coins. I will even sell you my land if you want it, because I simply cannot continue." Juan looked at him silently. He knew the whole story. He had seen with his own eyes the seed of cruelty Osvaldo had sown, and how he was now harvesting abject misery. Calmly, he accepted the offer. He purchased Bruno and also the once fertile lands that had belonged to his neighbor. In that profound instant, Bruno's noble heart seemed to neigh with pure joy. At last, God had listened to his fervent prayers. Now he would finally have a good master, and most importantly, he could work side by side with his dear friend Poncho. That same day, Bruno was released from the yoke of his wicked master, and seeing that his new home was right next to his friend Poncho, under the watchful, gentle care of Don Juan, his courageous heart seemed to physically smile. Of Osvaldo, nothing more was ever heard. He abandoned the lands, vanishing without leaving a single trace, like the shadow of a terrible memory that the wind swiftly carries away forever. But in the kind hands of Don Juan, those very same lands instantly began to flourish once more. For when simple goodness governs, even the earth responds with renewed abundance. From that historic day forward, Bruno's life was fundamentally transformed. Don Juan welcomed him onto his farm with unreserved kindness and care, as if Bruno had always been a cherished part of his home. The very first thing Don Juan ensured was ample rest, quality food, and essential vitamins to restore the strength that the cruelty of his former owner had stolen. Soon, Bruno began to feel the lost energy surging back into his body. His muscles grew strong again. His coat recovered its sheen, and in his previously deadened eyes, the bright spark of hope was dramatically reborn. In the lush, green meadows of the farm, Bruno and Poncho ran freely, unburdened by whips, shouts, or the invisible chains of abuse. They galloped together through the cool grass, breathing the clean air of true freedom, while the other animals watched them with deep admiration. It was as if the sheer joy of those two loyal donkeys had become infectious, and the entire farm began to vibrate with a beautiful new harmony. When the time came for labor, they performed it with palpable love. Bruno no longer carried his assignments with crippling fear or deep sadness, but with genuine pride and profound gratitude. Alongside Poncho, he carried milk jugs to the town. They plowed the fertile soil and transported firewood, but this time everything was drastically different. Their immense effort did not go unnoticed. Don Juan always found a way to reward them, whether it was with specific words of appreciation, tender strokes on the back, or the best, freshest hay in the entire stable. They were not viewed as mere working animals. They were highly valued, essential companions in their master's life. Every night, Bruno offered a silent, sincere prayer, thanking God for his incredible rescue and asking for the strength to honor this profound second chance. He and Poncho, inseparable partners in dedicated labor, became a symbol of how consistent effort, joined with gratitude, always finds its just reward. Though Bruno never forgot the long days of pain endured under Osvaldo's cruel yoke, he knew those very wounds had ultimately guided him to the destiny he had always dreamed of: to work with dignity, right beside his beloved friend, and under the faithful care of a truly righteous man.